Hello, friends. I am going to start by telling you a story. So once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, it's not actually a fairy tale. So imagine that you are going to work one day, and a friend of yours tells you that they haven't been feeling great, that they actually just returned from work because they had strep. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad. I'm very relieved that it's not COVID. There's actually a treatment for that. And you're feeling that little bit of relief. But then the same friend mentions that they haven't just had strep once. In fact, they've had it 4 times in 6 months. And you're like, whoa, that doesn't sound great. Are you okay? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. I'm a little bit worried because I don't know if I have enough sick leave to get through this. And you're like, that's really hard. But you honestly know that they work at an organization that understands that. And so you tell them to take care of themselves. And then they mention to you that they've had a family member that was sick, that they had to go home to take care of. And that they had some dental work that they had to get done. And that they live alone, and so they were a little concerned about who would take care of them if something happened. And this is a story that we've all heard pretty frequently over the past year, I think. Maybe not the strep part, but about the being sick, about this and about that, going on and on and on. But our normal response, and my response, has always been, I'm so sorry to hear that. Please let me know if I can help. And I hope that you can take care of yourself. And then walking away. But actually, that's a story about my last year. Ironic, because I've spent an entire year talking about health and health equity at the same time that my own body really wasn't on my side this year. I had strep 4 times. I had a mother that had COVID at one point and was suffering from some mental deterioration at the same time. A pandemic's worth of dental problems that I had to fix and figure out how to deal with. Illness after illness, surgery after surgery, and I was struggling. And that's the response that I'd given to everyone before. I'm so sorry, I hope you can take care of yourself. I'm so sorry, let me know how I can help. When you find yourself on the other side of it, it's really, really difficult sometimes to figure out what to do. But I thought I was okay, right? I thought that I was drowning a little bit, but definitely treading water. I kept my head above water at all times, was surviving one day to the next. Until one day I had a hard day at work. It wasn't that anything went wrong on this one day at work, right? I had some emails that I'd forgotten to send. I had a phone call that I missed. I had a young person come to me really struggling. But nothing went terribly wrong. But when I got in my car that afternoon, I was exhausted. Bone tired, exhausted, and I couldn't figure out why. So I was driving home. I hit some traffic. There's this street in Philadelphia. It's called Lincoln Drive. I drive it every single day. It is this tiny, itty-bitty, windy road through one of the most beautiful parks in Pennsylvania, the Wissahickon State Park. It's absolutely gorgeous, but also a death trap. There was an accident on this road, and I sat in traffic for about 30 minutes. And for some reason, that 30 minutes, I started to cry. It wasn't that anything was wrong, right? I was listening to NPR on the radio, I was going about my normal day, and I just couldn't stop crying. I had the tightness in the back of my jaw, I had my eyes that felt like they were stinging, and I eventually, 30 minutes later, pulled up to my house and just couldn't stop crying. Now, I am a huge fan of a good car cry. For some reason, crying in the car, in my driveway, is a safe place for me. It doesn't matter that I know that literally all of my neighbors can see me. Sometimes it's the release that I need. But this time I couldn't stop. And so I called a friend of mine, my best friend from high school. Her name's Natalie. And she said, Kate, something's wrong. Kate, you really need to figure out what's going on. I think you're burned out. I was like, no, I can't be burned out. I literally train people in what burnout is. I train people in stress. That's not what's happening to me. She said, Kate, you're burned out. And it took someone else telling me what was happening for me to understand it. Which, let's be real, is really, really embarrassing. Because again, this is my job. I train other people in this every single day. But I was so busy surviving. I was so busy making sure that I answered every email, that I was able to be there for my young people, that I couldn't tell what was going on in my own body. I was making the doctor's appointments, making the phone calls, doing everything that I needed to do to survive, and I couldn't see the big picture. And I know why now, right? I know why, because now that I'm out of that moment, I can actually figure that out. And that is because of how our brains work. So I want to walk you all through something called brain states. And to do that, we need to understand a little bit more about our own brains. So the brain is built when we're in the womb from the inside out and the bottom up. I like to use my hand to demonstrate this. So imagine your forearm, that's your brainstem. That's the part of your brain that handles your very basic functioning, breathing, when you're hungry, all of those sort of things. Then we have this part of our brain. This is our midbrain, right? This is our lizard brain, handles our very base instincts of how to survive. Then we have our amygdala. Our amygdala, our limbic system, this is our fight, fright, or freeze place, right? This is where we figure out if something is going to cause us danger. And then on top of that, we have our cortex. The cortex is the part that makes us human. That's the part of our brains that let us think, that let us do math problems, that let us see into the future. And the really interesting part about this is sometimes when we are so stressed, we can't use this top part of our brain. And we're stuck in our amygdala, our survival part, we're stuck in our midbrain, and sometimes we get so stressed out that we are just doing our basic functioning. The interesting part of that is that during that process, we physically lose the ability to picture the future. We physically lose the ability to think creatively. So we can't even imagine our way out of a situation because we are so busy in the present moment. And so we can't do that, right? We can't do that because our brains won't physically let us. And now that I'm out of it, I know that's what happened, right? I know that's what that was happening. But it took someone else telling me that I was in that state to recognize it. So even though I couldn't get to the term burnout by myself, I still didn't think I got to own that term because nothing happened, right? The day that I broke down, totally normal day. Missed a few emails, had a young person break down to me. All of these things are things that I have been doing for the past 6 years at my organization, and I've been doing for the past 2 years in a pandemic. Totally normal. So I didn't get to own that term in my mind. That's not actually how burnout works. That's not how stress and traumatic stress works. To better understand it, we need to use an analogy of radiation. So if you are exposed to radiation, there are 2 major ways that you can do that. One is through a big event, right? Something happens, Chernobyl explodes, and you get exposed to radiation. You know that happens. You know that you need to take care of yourself because of that. Then there's the other way to think about radiation, which is small doses over a long period of time. And that is much closer to what burnout is. It wasn't that I had one big event that happened. I had 100,000 small events that happened. I had young people tell me that they didn't have anywhere to sleep. I had young people telling me about their traumatic childhoods. I had my mother who was in the hospital. I had my health concerns going on. And so I was exposed to a low level of that toxic stress and burnout over a long period of time that culminated in my body literally telling me to stop. And I started to worry about this because I knew that I wasn't the only one that this was happening to. I started to hear this from type A personality after type A personality, from my friends, from people that I really cared about. And during that, I started to worry about our field, about health equity, about youth development, about workforce development, about teaching, about healthcare in general. Because what happens when all of the good people get burned out? What happens when they end up in the same situation that I was and don't know what's going on? And so one of the things that this fellowship has given me, and one of the things that I hope that we keep doing, is talking about this, about getting vulnerable, about telling our own stories of feeling burnt out, of feeling this way so that we can help other people. We need to model that behavior. We need to model that it is okay to be exhausted sometimes. It's okay to take a step back so that we can take a step in later when we are really needed. And on top of that, I want you all to remember that I, the expert in this field, couldn't recognize it when I was burned out. So talk to your friends about it. If you hear stories like that, let them know that it's okay. Let them know that they might be experiencing burnout and that they get to own that term, even if they don't think they get to. I'm still in the middle of figuring out all of my story. I had my tonsils out. I just started reteaching yoga, which feels exhausting and like something to add. I don't get to tie it up with a neat little bow, but there is a little bit more hope. Thank you.